with DOGE to root out the waste, lock as much of it into law as possible. If we can fit it in a budget reconciliation, we surely will. If it's going to come later in a rescissions package, then we're going to do it as best as we can to achieve those real savings for the taxpayers of this country who are counting on us to deliver. The man who's delivering our agenda in the House, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks to my colleagues. Good morning to all of you. It's another busy week on Capitol Hill. Let me address these two very important pieces of legislation that are upon us. Just give you a little more info and then we'll take questions. I want to thank our great colleague from Kansas, former Attorney General. He knows that at which he speaks, and Congressman Schmidt gives great voice to this. We're talking about this problem of rogue rulings, and you know, the Democrats, our colleagues here, they talk all about this so-called constitutional crisis that they see around every tree. They don't like President Trump's policies, and so that's their catchphrase they use for everything. But there really is a constitutional crisis that's developing. It's not the one that the Democrats claim, though. Listen to these numbers, and we've shared them before. 67% of all injunctions issued by district court judges against a president since the year 2000 were issued against one man, and his name's President Donald J. Trump. 92% of those injunctions against the president were issued by Democrat-appointed judges. There's a problem. I've mentioned before, I was a constitutional law litigator, routinely would run into judges that I would describe as activists, but it was much more rare than it is now, and it's a problem that has been noted needs to be addressed. Under the existing framework, one singular district court judge out of 677 of them, anywhere in America, can subvert the will of the duly elected president carrying out his constitutional duties. And they're doing that. And so we've got to step into this. Despite the American people's wholesale rejection of Democrat ideas at the ballot box, you have activist judges who are abusing the system to legislate from the bench. That's effectively what an activist judge is. This is not how the system our founders designed is supposed to work. Under our Constitution, we have three co-equal branches of government, each with the ability to provide a check on the other. And we do have that authority. Democrats seem to have forgotten that. I mentioned at a press conference or a gaggle, maybe it was last week with all of you, I can't remember, so many of these, but somebody asked me repeatedly about, you know, impeachment, and they asked me about our authority under the Constitution. What authority do we have? Under Article 3, the Congress is given the authority to determine, define, fund all lower courts. Only the Supreme Court has mentioned itself in the Constitution, and the lower courts are within the purview of the Congress. And I was asked, and I offered the answer, yes. I mean, we could defund those courts. I wasn't saying, let me clarify, I wasn't saying that we're doing that. I was trying to describe what the Constitution says. Go read it for yourselves. We have broad scope. We have all authority over the lower courts, okay? We're not defunding courts, and we're not doing anything other than limiting in this legislation the ability of a judge to issue a nationwide injunction, because that is the problem that has gotten totally out of control. And we need this check on the judiciary, and I think we're going to prove that on the floor. One activist judge should not issue a nationwide injunction against the president's policies, and these district courts have to stay within their constitutional bounds. The next act we talked about that will be on the floor is the SAVE Act, and we've been here and done this, but we have to do it again because we never got it through the Senate last time. But this is the second time in less than a year congressional Democrats will have the opportunity to do something that 87% of the American people demand that Congress does. Only U.S. citizens should decide U.S. elections. It is in federal law, but it is not always enforced, and you need further enforcement. Why? Because we have to make sure that the law is complied with, and this will require a reasonable measure of having an ID to prove your citizenship. It's Democrats say it's already illegal to vote as a citizen, but that doesn't mean that you don't need further enforcement. We don't rely on the integrity of teenagers trying to purchase a six-pack at the liquor store, right? We require them to provide ID to prove they're old enough to make that purchase. We require ID for almost everything in society, and almost everybody has one. And we're just saying that this is a very simple common sense measure. States are barred from even asking to verify citizenship status or on voter registration forms currently. So we have to fix that. And the states can't just rely on the integrity of the registrant. We need a safeguard in the system. So the SAVE Act closes that massive loophole. It codifies President Trump's executive action to secure our voter registration process, and it protects the voices of American voters. If we don't have free and fair and safe and secure elections, then we have nothing in a republic. And so that's where we're moving forward, and we'll see where the Democrats stand on it. I'll take questions. Yes.
Speaker, President Trump this week in an interview with my colleague Kristen Welker said that when he repeatedly brings up the idea of running for a third term, that he is not joking. You are a constitutional law expert. Is there a legal constitutional path for him to seek a third term, and would you support him if he went down that road?
Well, I just told everybody to read the Constitution. There's a constitutional path. You have to amend the Constitution to do it, and that's a high bar. You know, the president and I have talked about this, joked about it. He's joked about it with me on stage before. You know, we take him at his word. I understand why so many Americans do wish that he could run for a third term, because he's accomplishing so much in this first 100 days that they wish it could go on for much longer. But I think he recognizes the constitutional limitations, and I'm not sure that there's a move about to amend the Constitution. Yeah.
Speaker Johnson, do you think that the president should move forward tomorrow with tariffs, with imposing tariffs?
He's made very clear that he's doing this in the executive branch under his executive authority, and it doesn't involve Congress in that way. Look, you have to trust the president's instincts on the economy, okay? And why? You don't. This isn't blind faith. Remember what he accomplished in the first administration. Before COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of the world, not the U.S., the whole world. Every demographic was doing better because we cut taxes, we cut regulations, and we made a better economic environment for everybody to succeed. And he is going about that same plan to bring that about, and tariffs is a component of that. And we'll see how it all develops. I mean, the reciprocal tariff policy is one that makes a lot of common sense. I mean, you look at the trade disparity between many nations, and much of this began after World War II, and the rationale apparently was, well, we need to rebuild Europe, and America emerges as the great superpower, so we should have this imbalance. It's fair. It's, you know, this is what we need. Well, that carried on for generations, and we're well beyond World War II now, and this is a different world. It's a much more integrated, complex economy, and the president's absolutely right when he says that we have to think about America's interest first, because if we don't, we're not going to maintain our status as the great superpower. And when he says, let's have free trade and fair trade, I think the reciprocal tariff policy makes sense. If somebody has 100+% tariff on imports of U.S. goods, and we have virtually nothing, why don't we settle that balance? If we raise and match their tariff policy, I think ultimately what happens is you get back down to a free trade agreement, that these countries that have engaged in this disparity, this raw deal for Americans for so long, it'll get their attention, and they'll, I think, reduce their tariffs on us. Then you get back to a free and fair trade situation. So, look, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to go forward, and it may be rocky in the beginning, but I think that this will make sense for Americans, and it will help all Americans. So, yes, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. President Trump says that Elise Stefanik will be rejoining your leadership team, and that you are very enthusiastic to be having her remain in the House. What role will she be playing on your leadership team, given that she has already relinquished her past leadership role?
Yeah, we're trying to sort that out. Elise is a dear friend, trusted colleague. She's a super talent, and she has always brought a lot to the table. And she stepped down from her conference chair role, and on her important committee assignments, she was in line to have a gavel on some of those. And the circumstances changed. So recognizing her talent, I said I would love to invite her back immediately to the leadership table. All the leadership posts are filled at the moment, so we're trying to figure out some creative role for Elise to play, because, you know, I think that helps the whole body. I think it helps our conference, and it puts her in a position where she can be of her highest and best use. Scott, as you know, every single day as Speaker, what I try to do is make sure all of our members are of their highest and best use. We try to match skill sets with positions, and it's an imperfect thing, but we work through it. And you know, what happened with Elise is we're dealing with, and we're going to make her a very valuable and important member of this conference, as she always has been. And I'm excited about that. I am. I'm glad to have her remain with us. So, last question, very bad.
On the topic of activist judges, does the legislation touch on using artificial intelligence at all in this regard? And, you know, semantic analysis of artificial intelligence is very high. And, you know, is it theoretically possible to be able to use AI in a judiciary capacity?
Wow. I think they're going to replace all the lawyers before they do the judges, and I'm worried about that. I'm a recovering attorney myself. I don't know. That's a great question. They say AI is going to change everything. I certainly hope that we don't have AI determining the outcome of cases, though. I think you got to rely on the system and rely on human judgment for these things. But we'll see. That's a brave new world question. I don't have the answer yet. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.